Hey, yo, we back once again. This is Try and Reg, That Ain't Rap Podcast.
What's goody?
Today we're doing something special this time, something different. It's for the late great Heavy D who died on this day, unfortunately, back in 2011, November 8th. We did record this episode like months ago, but for whatever reason I couldn't upload it to the channel, so I'm trying again, and I say, you know what, I'm gonna just save it till the actual anniversary for Heavy D, for his death, and Heavy D meant a lot to me in music and in rap. I've seen him twice in concert, and it was great both times I saw him, and you know, he passed away. I think he had like a blood clot. That's what
Yeah,
he passed away from, and I remember hearing the news that day, and it was couldn't believe it. One of my favorite artists. Growing up. One of my mom's favorites. In rap, and I wanted to do like there's something I don't really hear about. I wanted to do like just a little like top three favorite Heavy D songs that his cousin Pete Rock produced. Pete Rock from CL Pete Rock and CL Smooth, that group, and another group that I saw in concert ironically, and they both grew up together in out there in Money Under Mount Vernon. Shout out to Mount Vernon. And over the years, looking back at his career, I've noticed that Pete did a lot of bangers for like his some of his albums like Big Time and Peaceful Journey, Blue Funk, Nothing But Love. I love all of those albums, all classic albums to me, and I wanted to pay tribute to him on the anniversary by like discussing like our top three favorite Heavy D songs produced by Pete Rock, because I've never seen nobody discuss it, and I'm like, yo, why not us? So my my
right.
my my first one. Well, I'm gonna go from three to one. So my third favorite would be um I'm gonna say Got Me Waiting, because I love that song with the Luther Vandross sample, and it was such a great first single from Nothing But Love. I actually got the album Nothing But Love. Definitely love this album, and it had like a real dope melodic beat to it. I love the background singing on it and on the chorus, and it was like one of them love joints, but Heavy wasn't too sappy on that joint, but he said all the right things. He's like the big huggable teddy bear of rap, and he said all the right things to pull the women, and that's a banger, man. Like I've always loved that song. That's probably my favorite joint on Nothing But Love when it came out, and yeah, that's I got. I was debating if I'm gonna put that number three or number one, but I'm like the other two. Any of these three could have been number one, but the other two definitely are my favorites as well. So yeah, Got Me Waiting, first single from Nothing But Love. That's my number three.
Okay, okay. My number three, I'm gonna go with "Don't Curse" from Peaceful
Yes.
Journey. Definitely a very love that beat to me. It definitely has like a very 60s soul kind of feel to it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's when you had Grand Puba, Q-Tip, Coogee
Hmm.
Rap, Kane. Hell, even Pete Rock was rapping on that shit too.
Right.
So definitely love that joint right there.
Yes, and that ironically is my number two. Don't Curse. I love that joint, and I didn't always like it though. It was weird because, like, that was I remember that was the first album after Trouble T. Roy passed away. Rest in peace to him. And it was a real somber album. It was real like it's probably the most darkest album. And some of those tracks it took like years to for some of those tracks to grow on me. Like that was one of them. And I remember what was the other one? The Letter to the Future. That was another one. But like watching that video, I remember when D Barnes was on to Pump It Up, and they showed that video like a lot, and I loved the video, and they had like a real party atmosphere, even though the group was still mourning Trouble T Roy's loss, and having like a posse collab with Grand Puba and Q Tip and Kane and G Rap, and it was crazy. It was crazy. I loved that joint, and Heavy killed it, and they all showed that like the rappers can actually make a dope song without cursing. It wasn't just about Will Smith. At that time Will Smith wasn't doing it, and they called him Disney rap and all that, and I think it was a classic posse cut at that time, and nobody used a profanity on that track, and I definitely loved it. Pete Rock did his thing on that. Co Smooth was on that. Man, that's like all time top 10 posse collabs ever, man. Like I love Don't Curse. Definitely one of my favorites now on Peaceful Journey. I need to get that album, man, because I used to have it on cassette. I don't have it on CD or vinyl, but I definitely need to get that in my collection. But yeah, that's my number two.
Yeah, I only have their first two albums. I know the feeling.
Oh man, they stuff is really out of print. Like I never had their first two out on any format.
Wait a minute.
Hmm?
I could have sworn I have nothing but love.
Name of Love.
Maybe I have
We,
that one. I got.
I think we were supposed to do a album discussion on that.
Yeah, we were supposed to do like a couple heavy D albums and stuff.
Yeah,
That's coming though.
yeah.
My number two, I'm gonna take it to the Blue Funk era.
Oh,
Yes. I'm gonna go with Love Sexy.
woo. Oh man, I
Yeah,
love that
man,
joint.
that album to me is definitely, dare I say, them at their most darkest album, because it had like a very, like the way how that album was together was just more bass heavy, more
Right,
downbeat compared to the upbeat of Peaceful Journey and even like Nothing But Love.
right.
But I just love how Pete was using them bass lines. And of course, those horn samples he was using, the signature Pete Rock horns, was full on display on that. So, yeah,
Yo,
that's a very solid joint.
I love that joint, man. Blue Funk definitely is one of my. This one might be my favorite Heavy D album all time. Like, it's just for that time period it came out, and tail end of '92 going into '93, and I feel like a lot of hardcore rap albums that came out in '93, and this was like his most street album, and the production on here was great. Pete Rock on here. You got Primo on here. You got Tony Dofat, Skeff Anselm. It was great. Definitely a great album. And my number one favorite is Blue Funk, the title track. I love that joint. Hear me out. I got trunk in my funk. I got trunk in my. What do you say? Hear me out. I got funk in my trunk. Cause all I really need is a bag of blue funk. La
Yeah, some
la
shit
la
like
la
that.
la
Yeah.
la la la. I love that, man. When that video came out and I saw it, and he had like the blue lights in the video with the
Mhm.
everything was like blue theme colored in that video. It was crazy, and I'm like, man, this joint is banging. Like Pete Rock killed that joint, man. Like that's a serious banger in any sound system. You put that in your sound system now, it's like blowing the speakers, yo. Like that was definitely my favorite joint on the album, and like you said, like Love Sexy was great. I love that joint, and the what's the joint? It's a New Day, where he talked about like his brother getting shot and killed, and like just growing like life in the hood in Mount Vernon, and that was a real like street banger from Heavy D. I'm like that when I heard It's a New Day. I'm like, yo, that I don't hear too many like street bangers like that from Heavy. Like that was like a serious like street hardcore joint, and Pete produced that one as well on Blue Funk. I'm like, yo, man, he had some heat on there, definitely. Like Primo did his thing because he had like two joints that he produced, and Tony Dofat and him. I think like Pete had like the best produced tracks on this album, and I'm like, yo, man, this is great. That's like my number one, and I'm like when I was thinking about this list, I'm like, yo, I gotta have Blue Funk in the top three because Blue Funk is seriously underrated. Nobody talks about the album, and even like the hits off of that that album, like Who's the Man and Truthful. So I'm like, I definitely have to have that number one.
Definitely. Yeah, my number one got me waiting.
Yes,
So of course Nothing But Love.
fire.
Love the way he flipped that Luther Vandross sample.
Man.
Nothing But Love. That might actually be my favorite Heavy D and the Boys album.
Yeah, that's
I
a
def-
classic. Love that.
yeah, definitely. Again, it was an '80s hip hop group transitioning to the '90s. Well,
Right,
it was a back to the basics kind of feel to it, in my opinion.
definitely.
That track was definitely one of my favorite tracks off that album. Like Hell, talking about Blue Funk having nothing left makes me want to jam to them albums so good before I go to
But
bed and shit.
for
So
real, man. I'm
definitely
a,
got that
mm,
mature feel to it. I definitely love that shit, in my
I'm gonna definitely bump some of that shit later today, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll always, I didn't even like really process that he's been gone for that long, man. It seemed like just yesterday, you know what I'm saying? But
right.
it's like, damn, it's 10 years already, man. Time has really gone by real quick, and you know, is another legend that we lost, man. It's always the good ones, and you know, I wanted to do something, and we've talked about, you know, Heavy D's discography on here in like past couple years, and that was fun to do, and I just wanted to do like something else for Heavy, you know, it's you know, do something like a little bit different that I don't really see people talk about. So you know, rest in peace Dwight Myers, aka Heavy D. Rest in peace Trouble T. Roy. And yeah, man, and this was great. Like talking about my favorite producer all time, Pete Rock, and Heavy D, one of the greatest. And this was fun. Definitely enjoyed this.
Yeah, salute to you, bro. Hopefully
Yeah.
this gets uploaded and shit.
Yes, yes. I'm dropping it later today. Hopefully it don't take that long to process. So I wanted. That's why I had this in mind. I'm like, let me drop it on the day of the anniversary. So you know, no doubt. All right.
All right.
So this is Danny Rap Podcast. Tribo and Reg, and rest in peace, Heavy D.
Rest in peace. Salute to you, bro. Appreciate this.
All right.